It's got, that looks a bit messy, but there is a special order. Actually, there are tools there. I mean, this is from the painting material teaching room. And there are also some pigments what they can use. I mean, even if I'm not there, if somebody happens to like to make some oil paint or something. And then there are a lot of extra tools there when I have running the course, and there are working maybe 5 to 10 students at the same time. There are a lot of tables there. She is, this is also last week, she's making frames. She's going to have an exhibition and she wanted to make her own frames. It's quite a hard work, so, but I also advise her a bit from raw wood and so on. And there are 2 students, I think this is maybe Tuesday afternoon. He is from sculpture department and he's not participating in the course at all, but came to me with this drop-shaped object hanging there. And he's making a sculpture which consists of 40 or 50 drop-shaped plaster objects, which, when he came to me, he said that he wants them to look like a Lego brick, the surface. And so now he is trying a special styrene acrylate binder on which has a very, very high gloss. And so I give him some examples, some binders what he can test, and then he makes the test, and then we look, does it look like what he's thinking? So that's the very big part of my work as well. And here you see the lock. There is a staple gun there, because that's the only tool which I can't have there hanging on the wall, otherwise that will walk out. And she has an egg there. She's making tempera egg in her hand. And then you see there is also some black. There is a note, tools for the black paint, and it's there because there were students were practicing with this industrial black wall paint, and there the pigment is soot black, is like the lamp black. So it has very, very small pigment particles and can't be very easily washed away from brushes and spatulas and so on. And that's why there is that note that they, because you can't clean the brush really well, then they clean the brush and put it there. And there is still another picture from last week. He, the great young man there, came in and wanted to make a very, very shiny white primer. So he's cooking the rabbit skin glue and is going to add their titanium dioxide and then plaster of Paris, because plaster of Paris is totally white. There's no brownish shade in it, so it's possible to make a really shiny white primer. And there is still another black thing. It was funny, there happened some black phenomena last week. I don't know, she's an exchange student, I don't even know which department. She came to me with that sketch, you know, on the floor. And she's making an installation where there is, she shows, I look at her sketch and then she says that she wants to make this kind of installation where a lot of black stuff is running down to a pure whiteness. And okay, part of it will be maybe ink, which she's dropping into milk. But in the middle, there have to be something which drops from the floor to from the roof to the floor, and drops with a special way. She tried to explain me, and it doesn't run too quickly along the floor, but stays there and makes some kind of whatever it is. Yeah. And well, now she started this experimenting with oil and wax mixtures. I think it will work somehow, and I told her that if she is not pleased with that system, she can of course make some kind of porridge with carboxymethyl cellulose or wheat paste or such stuff. let's see when we go back home then if she's pleased. This is totally something else. That's my dog there, but the big leaves here, they are the woad, the Isatis tinctoria, which I grow every summer at our summer cottage. And you get the indigo from those leaves, and that's just the plant. You should know, the ancient Britain, they dye their skin together, yeah, with the woad. So because I organize a course every autumn. It's about 1 week's course where we go to the countryside and the students make pigments from nature. But they make both organic and inorganic pigments. And all those students who participate in the course, it's very important that they have already learned this difference between inorganic and organic materials, and especially with pigments, because that's the steps where the pigments are bound. It's their chemistry. And of course indigo is an organic color. There are indigo samples which I made many years ago, because I have organized this course already for 15 years, I think more even. And again, indigo is also a pigment which has been used to imitate black, because in old paintings black velvet might be done with indigo. It's very, very dark shade and it's pure. And this is from the course. I think this is from last autumn. It's 200 kilometers from Helsinki, an old priest house where there is an open balcony where it's very pleasant to work, even it's raining. So actually they gather leaves, like different plant material, and put it in a hot water, and you see immediately there comes out some color molecules. And actually they make pigments which are called substrate pigments. There is an inner part, the true particle is aluminum hydroxide, and then it's just covered with this organic stuff. And that's a method which has been used for 2000 years, so it's very, very old. And these chemicals their origin is in nature as well. Of course, when I buy them, they are synthetic, but they were purely natural source. And this is, of course, there is the indigo, you see, the blue one. And there are only few things which I take with me. Is that indigo? I take the leaves with me, and then they do the color there. And then this very, very strong purple color, it's from the cochineal insects. So it's an example that you just need to have few insects and you get huge amount of very, very strong color. Because then they understand what's the difference between what they take from the nature and what are the commercial stuff what people are then selling to each other. So they are only something where comes a lot of color out. So. And the blue, the leaves, these woad leaves, I have to grow because in Finland they grow only in this archipelago area and the southern coastal area. So, and this is to north where we have the course. And there are still there is a pigment sediment there. The pigment have to be washed many times, and then in the end, when the water starts to look clear, the sediment is poured into a coffee filter paper, and then you can actually paint with it immediately, or let it dry if somebody wants to make oil paint, for instance. And they make also pigment from sand, just with the same method, and from stones, and then they do this burning process. So it's possible, wherever you take any color of sand, when you burn it, you get always two shades. That's like the sienna, burnt sienna. Because in iron oxides there is always iron hydroxide, and when you heat it, it will evaporate away, and so that will change the shade of the sand. And that's the last picture, and that's the black. This is the Sennini method. We have been making that as well. So you can take any even quality leaf tree, hardwood. I think this is willow, And then he says that you take clay, wet clay, and you wrap it around these sticks. And then when the baker has went home, you put the packets in the oven. And then you come in the morning and open them. And that works. But if you want to try it, it's much more easy to do it so that you wrap them in aluminium folio. Because if they are not ready and you have done this clay packet, it's difficult to put it back there. So, but that works. So because the point is that you can't do any charring if there is not a little bit oxygen in there at the same time, and there goes through this clay, the oxygen goes through the clay. And if you wrap them in aluminium folio, you have to make a few holes here and there, because otherwise they don't turn to pure carbon.
Thank you very much, Mark.
So, I'm going to quite briefly talk about one of our master degree students, Tiina Pyykkinen, of her work, which is dealing with black. I'm somehow trying to see and explain what might be the idea behind her use of black, and how do the works about what are they consisting, the works. But I see now that this projector is not very good. You cannot see much of them. So those of you who could see from this screen could maybe see it a little bit more better.
Turn it round higher.
Doesn't help.
Yeah.
Because she is using black as totally matte. She's using often pigments which she is pouring to the wet surface, and then she is using different varnishes to make really glossy surface, and they are often beside each other in the work, and can make even an impression of a kind of negative image. But there are many different kinds of, which I will now quickly try to show you some of them, but I have to skip a bit over, we are already past the time. So her works are like usually like traditionally stretched canvases and mostly painted with oil colors, even though in this piece there is also alkyd. And you can see it's two huge panels which are put to make a 90 degrees corner. So they are glazed surfaces, glossy surfaces, so they are reflecting each other's colors. And when I first saw this piece, this is just I done this year, I just saw that there are two black panels. They were here in this image. You can see the colors much more clearly than actually on that space where I saw them, or on that place where I saw them, because they are very sensitive to the light what is around them. They really turn their character to something different on different places. So even though they seem like bare black painting surfaces, with more careful look and especially by moving in front of them, they unfold. How to see through, how to pass your own perception. What do you actually see, and how do you interpret your vision? These are the main questions for Tiina Pyykkinen. During the early phases of her studies, like 5-6 years ago, this is the work since then, she used X-ray images as reference to her paintings. So I'm just giving you a little bit of ideas how her work was developing to this stage where the first image was, or the former image was about. And later an essential thought was the structure of molecules and atoms as base for tangible, visible things. If we approach matter, materiality, theoretically through physics, matter consists mainly of emptiness. Just go quickly through earlier ones. These are all, this is from 2007 and you hardly can see. This is actually from this year. Tina says her work is an exploration of the material character of the visible and invisible. Tina's paintings are a way of studying substance, its unlocalization and transparency through the means of painting, of course. At the same time, they aim to communicate with space. Tina's black paintings consist of different colors painted in thin layers over each other. So she uses a traditional method of oil painting technique. Like originally centuries and centuries ago, oil colors with different varnishes made it possible to create impressions of lively, glowing colors and deep, versatile shadows. The chance to paint many transparent layers of colors over each other enabled diversified colors. As you know, the shadows can be quite deep and even mysterious in some old paintings. Or contemporary paintings, if somebody would use this technique, it's actually not so much used nowadays, and with acrylics it's quite different, the feeling and the look also work in similar way as oil. Thus, I think with this kind of oil, like transparent many layers over each other, you can approach the complicated nature of shadows and reflections in reality. If you look at some shadow, for example here, whatever shadow, whatever place here in the white, this is all white more or less. How many colors you can see if you start to really carefully look, or in whatever surface. That is one question that I think we as painters at least are very acquainted with and are dealing with it. Further. Tina is exploring this aspect of oil color technique, and she is stretching and opening it up to 21st century and towards, in a way, site-specific aspects of contemporary art. Of course, Tina's paintings are not site-specific in a literal sense. Anyhow, they are very sensitive to the surroundings. They appear different while looked from different directions, and not to mention when situated in different places. Here is, for example, a piece. It's again a glossy piece with like wooden, just random wooden pieces on the floor. And actually, I cannot remember, is this just a reflection or was it painted there? Probably it was painted, but there's also the reflection of the wooden part at the same time there. That already, by this kind of idea, you can make quite complicated pieces if you like. This is just one of hers. Usually our everyday perceptions are based on constancies. Perceptual constancy requires the discarding of much flux. As neuroscientists say, to assign constant colors to surfaces, we must ignore wavelength composition of reflected light. With size perception, we must discount the viewing distance, and with shape, the viewing angle. Out of an infinitely changing energy flux, the brain, whose resources are finite, must assign constant features to objects and determine canonical attributes that constitute category. That's why I think Tina's paintings are black. I think at the first sight that they are black. If I allow, here are some older images, but I go quickly through. She has been using also some colors, but here the same idea, two colors which actually in a theoretically could kill each other, like orange and blue. If you paint them together, they turn gray. If you mix them together, different grays. Okay, she used also to, but I have to skip now, it's too little time. Here are two colors which are mixed together in the next piece, and they make this kind of black. It's quite black. It was astonishing. to me to know that there are only those two colors and the result when you put them together is black. Here shiny is. But if I allow myself to perceive them a while longer, so her works, they turn out to be platforms for challenging perception, challenging mental images based on seeing. That even could mean bringing into question the known concepts. Aha, okay, now it went. It's supposed to be still one image there. That even could mean bringing into question the known concepts, labels and formulas we use in making sense of our vision. What do we actually see and how do we interpret our vision? Actually, these have been the basic questions in academic tradition, art academic tradition. In the beginning of 1980s, while I was studying, we used to paint and draw naked model, for example. I don't know if it belongs to your curriculum. It doesn't belong much to ours today, but there are still some courses on that. And the instruction was then, paint as you see. The assignment meant struggling through constancies, actually. In the end, red may be included green, as well as many other colors additionally, indeed, they're there. So, paint as you see. Even what do you see is a really, really complicated question. And I think with different techniques also, even painting techniques, not to mention with different medias, you can approach this question in many, many directions, and you can give really interesting answers to that. That can be art, these answers, and is art. The last sentence, this might be a bit too poetical. I don't know if it makes sense to you, because English is not my mother tongue. In a way, Tina calculates the perception on portions of dark matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daria. And now we have Jean Brown from Conservation in South Cumbria.